Welcome to the EOB Podcast. I am your host, Ben No. So let's get right to the box office. Last weekend, we see the release of the third Avengers movie, Avengers Infinity War. I made some predictions, and let's see how I did with my predictions and see how off I am. All right. So coming in number one at the box office is no surprise, Avengers Infinity War. But what is a surprise is how large the opening is. It pulled in 258 million over the weekend, which is a record-breaking number, which is the highest opening ever for a domestic movie. Just below, before it was Star Wars: The Force Awakens with 248, but Marvel's Avengers Infinity War broke that record by a couple more million, roughly 10 more million. So that is a huge opening for for a Marvel's movie. And I think no one expected this movie to be that huge. People, I think, when we looked at the the news reports, people were projecting the movie to open up in the like 230 million range. Because the previous Marvel's Avenger movie, like I think the first Marvel Avengers movie opened to like 200 or so. Let me check up on that. Real-time research here. Let's go with the Avengers series. So the first movie, Marvel's Avenger, opened to 207 million, and then Age of Ultron took a dip. Took a dip with a 191 million opening. So all these movies, we thought with the Age of Ultron, I think it's because of a weak villain in Ultron, the robotic overlord, and I guess people aren't into that, but with Infinity War, I think the storyline is better, and they pretty much threw everybody into this movie. I believe there's Spider-Man, there's Hulk, the Avengers, everybody, Black Panther's in this movie. And there's a saying that Marvel is hoping that more is more. As one of the articles says, with Infinity War, and I guess it helps out because. Remember, Infinity War followed Black Panther, which had a huge opening, and it became the highest-grossing superhero movie ever domestically. And I think this follows the halo effect from Black Panther. We'll get to Black Panther in a bit. So it all these storylines accumulate into this war. I think if it's anything to compare by, it's kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy, which did really well at the box office. This involves intergalactic battle creatures, etc. And the Thanos is the villain in Infinity War, and he's a better villain than Ultron. And Guardians of the Galaxy is in this as well. So every superhero movie ever in the Marvel Cinematic Universe gathered for Infinity War. They're here to battle it out. The greatest threat to survival of the universe hangs in a balance. Because Thanos, with these gems, if he is able to collect all these 5 gems, is able to control everybody. And I guess the reason why he want to do it, to please Death. Mistress Death is a personification of death or something like that. He has this obsession with death. So that's the reason why he did it. Hey. So Avengers Infinity War, record breaking. It's the review wise is not as well reviewed as the previous superhero movies, but it's still pretty good. I think at 84% as of this. Is it 84%? Yeah, 84% at Rotten Tomatoes. But the cinema score is A, which is decent, right? Not well reviewed with critics, I guess, but it's still pretty good. It's very good. It's when you're talking about superhero movies. Remember before, superhero movies were not that well regarded. People thought it was a joke because the people who made the movies didn't really put serious talent and money behind it, and they turn it into some sort of jokey thing, and then it became big, right? And now, one of the greatest franchises ever, or at least Marvel, right? Disney owns them, and they're trying to milk this in perpetuity, right? Forever. So it's doing pretty well. Highest record-breaking opening. We don't know which movie will break the Avengers Infinity War next. It's pretty tough, but then again, we said that when Force Awakens opened, Star Wars, 248 was whoa, that that's pretty high, and then like a year or two later, no, a couple years later, hey, we have here Avengers Infinity War breaking it. So I think maybe at some point some movie will break this one. Maybe it's James Cameron Avatar, who knows, right? But there you go. And I say credit goes to Black Panther, right? The halo effect from that one carries this movie, carries the positive vibes from that movie, carried on over to Avengers Infinity War. And of course it helps that there's a good villain, and then they threw in everything and the kitchen sink in this movie, meaning that all the superhero movies in the cinematic universe is here. So this one propels this Avengers to a pretty, very good opening, decent. No one's complaining. Record-breaking opening. So there you go. Avengers: Infinity War. 258. Let's see where I projected the movie to open to. Let me squeeze out the way first of the camera so I can take a look at my screen here. I said the movie would probably have a 200 to 207 million opening, so off there a little bit by a couple of millions here and there, right? And my reasoning behind that was because of Age of Ultron. It took a dip, and I thought that people are looking this as an Avengers movie, but then again, there is no more Avengers movie. Everything is interconnected, right? There is Black Panther carrying over to the Avengers, and Avengers to the other one, whatever is next. I'm not keeping track of these movies now, so one thing carry on to the over to another, and it depends on the storyline here, and there you go. With Infinity War, like all the superhero movies, you can see if you're a fan of the Avengers, you're a fan of the individual characters in the Avengers. If you're a fan of Guardians of the Galaxy, if you're a fan of Spider-Man, Black Panther, they're all in here. This big hodgepodge of who's who in the superhero universe. At least we're talking about Marvel here. It's in here. Doctor Strange, right? They're all in here, all accumulated, all these separate storylines all accumulated into this movie, and they're battling out against this big baddie, who's out to exterminate, all life in the universe. It's not world destruction, it's universe destruction, and of course it takes place, I guess, on Earth. Hey. There you go. Okay, enough about Infinity War. Let's move on to number 2. It is the horror movie thriller A Quiet Place. Stars Emily Blunt, John Krasinski. It pulled in, let's see, let me move out the way again. Okay, it pulled in 10.6 million over the weekend. It is holding on despite Avengers Infinity War. Remember, when the movie is opening up in the 200 million range or so, or even a bit lower, right? It sucks, like we said in the previous podcast, it sucks the oxygen from the box office in general. Every movie is just going to be lower, and A Quiet Place is only able to manage to still holding on, right? The drop off is only about 49%, which is a pretty good hold. I mean, considering that everybody and everyone went to see the Avengers, and 50 place is decent. It's very good, very good. In the face of Avengers, right? Domestic gross right now is 148 million. Budget is 17 million. This movie came out of nowhere. Nobody expect this movie to do well unless you are a fan. Unless you keep track of the film festivals, right? This A Quiet Place generated some buzz at a film festival. I think they were expecting this movie to, open in the teens or so, right? But it opened to 50 million, and it continued to hold on to build generate interest, and people went out to watch it. Again, able to be number 2 in the face of Infinity War. Of course, Infinity War was the only new release last weekend, so Quiet Place was first the previous weekend. So it held on to number 2. It's okay, but still, for the drop off to be only about 49% is a very good hold. Like I said. All right. Let's move on to number 3 is the Amy Schumer comedy I Feel Pretty, which can be placed. It was third at the previous weekend and is third again this weekend. Drop off like Quiet Place is around 49%. It pulled in 8.1 million over the weekend. It didn't open well. It didn't open as well as I expect the movie to open to, but it's holding on. It's holding on, right? Again, like I said, 49% in the face of Infinity War is a pretty good hold. And the domestic gross right now is about 30 million. The budget is for this movie is 32 million. So it didn't hold on well, but hey, it is able to maintain. It's able to have some legs. People it's like or late to discover this movie, but hey, it's generating good box office, and it's nearing its box production budget. And so it's decent. Amy Schumer, hey, like her, don't like her, hey, she's a force at the box office right now. All right, and moving on to number 4 is the Dwayne Johnson actioner Rampage, based on a video game, of course, fleshed out for the movie. It pulled in about 7.1 million over the weekend. Drop off is about 65%. Like I said, the drop off is huge because of Infinity War, and the two movies have overlapping demographics, target audiences. And domestic gross right now is 79 million, and let's see, the budget is 120 million though, but worldwide is at 334 million. So even though it didn't do as well as here overseas, right, it did well it didn't do well domestically here, it did well overseas. So yay for Dwayne Johnson, still a force in the overseas market. And speaking of Infinity War, I have to mention that it opened overseas already, right? Let me put this in, right? Worldwide is at 641 million. 382 of that from overseas, so it's a huge overseas, and it's gonna cross 1 billion, no doubt about it, right? It's more than halfway there, and we're only in its first weekend. Right, so it's gonna continue to generate the buzz. It's gonna be the water cooler movie. The early summer, right? We're in the summer with the release here. Even though we're still in April, it's starting early. So there you go. It's gonna be hard to beat Avengers: Infinity War, I think, but who knows? I mean, there might be some movies that's coming down the pipeline, probably a superhero movie that will beat it, maybe, or at least not in a couple of years. All right. Speaking of more superhero movies, number 5 is Black Panther. It jumped up 3 spots from the 8th spot last weekend to the previous week to number 5 this weekend. Pulled in 4.4 million, because I think it's the halo effect from both movies. They want to watch more Black Panther after seeing the Avengers, or if they can't get into Avengers, they watch Black Panther. Because it jumped. Despite losing 280 theaters, right? The fell off is only 11% drop off from the previous weekend. So that means more people went to watch Black Panther. Like I said, maybe because people want to kind of revisit the movie again, or they couldn't get into Infinity War and they settle for Black Panther. In any case, it's good for Marvel, for Disney. And domestic gross for Black Panther is 688. And let's see, worldwide right now is at 1.3 billion, 645 of that from overseas. So like I said, Disney is doing really well since Disney owns Marvel. It owns Star Wars. So yay, Disney. Okay, moving on to number 6 is Super Troopers 2, the comedy by Broken Lizard, the Broken Lizard Troupe. It opened really well. I didn't expect it to open that well. It opened to about 15 million. Let's see where I had the movie opening at. I had the movie opening to 5 million because the first movie only opened to 6 million, and it pulled in 18 million domestically, and I thought, hey, the second movie is going to be similar. But they did a crowdfunding, right? They raised about 4.6 million on Indiegogo, right? Crowdfunded. I guess there were fans of this thing, fans who contributed, or fans of the troupe went out and to watch this movie, and it had a 15 million opening, but it dropped huge, mainly because again of Infinity War, and mainly because of the natural drop off of this comedy. I expect the movie to drop off huge the second weekend as well, because hey, I don't think the first movie didn't do that well theatrically, and the second movie, I guess maybe because of the promotion, or maybe it gains additional fans over time, it managed to have a huge 15 million opening. But second weekend it dropped huge, 76%, which is the highest of the movies in the top 10. So I expect it to drop further. So domestic gross right now is 22 million, but the budget is only about 13.5 million. So it's gonna do okay theatrically, and it's gonna do okay on home video streaming, Netflix, whatever. So there you go. I think it's a success for this movie, because hey, it managed to recover its production budget, and anything else is gonna be money from there. All right, number 7 is Truth or Dare, the horror movie. It's by Blumhouse. Jason Blum, he knows horror movies. This movie pulled in 3.2 million. Drop off is about 59% from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is about 35 million, and the budget is only 3.5 million. So there you go, 3.5 million, and you're able to gross 35 million domestically. So like I said, Jason Blum knows his horror movies, knows his audience, and hey, nothing more you can say, right? I mean, like I said, if I was to open a studio, I'm gonna probably start off with horror movies, because these movies are really cheap to make, and they scratch the itch of this genre, the audience, the horror movies, and 35 million on a budget of 3.5 million, very good, very good. All right, number 8, moving along, is Blockers. This is the Universal comedy starring John Cena and others. He stars as one of the parents whose daughter made a pact with some of her friends to lose their virginity on prom night, and they went out to block it. Hence the title. It pulled in about 2.9 million, roughly 3 million over the weekend, in its fourth weekend. Drop off is about 57%, and domestic gross is 53 million, and the budget is only 24 million. So yeah, this comedy is doing pretty well. And the reviews is surprisingly good as well. So because let's see what the reviews are for for Blockers. 83% on Tomato Meter, B cinema score, which is okay, decent, but not great. But hey, critics like it, which is rare for an R-rated comedy, right? And as I say, better review than I expected the movie, and it did better than I expected as well. All right, number 9, Ready Player One. It pulled in 2.4 million over the weekend. This is the Steven Spielberg sci-fi action adventure movie about the dystopian future, where people jacked into this virtual reality to live out their lives, and there's nothing going on for them in the real world, so their whole life is in this virtual reality world, and it's endangered, and all these players team up to save it. Drop off is 67% from the previous weekend, which is high. Again, it targets the same group, same crowd as Infinity War. And domestic gross is 130 million. Let's see what the worldwide take is. It says 545 million. So which is pretty good. I think the budget for Ready Player One is around 175 million. To make that, and worldwide gross is 545. Yeah, like I say, it's one of these hit for Steven Spielberg. Even though domestically it could be better, but hey, still it's huge overseas, and as long as it's profitable, hey, there you go. All right, rounding out the top 10 is the thriller movie Traffik, starring Paula Payton and Omar Epps. They play a couple who is stranded in the backwoods, like one of the southern states, and they have to deal with some rednecks. who might or might who might be like dealing drugs, trafficking drugs, or people. Who knows, right? Pulled in 1.6 million over the weekend. Drop off is about 59%, and domestic gross is 6.7 million. So not a lot of expectation of this movie, because I don't think I didn't expect much from this movie, because I thought this movie could open in the 5 to 10 million range. I think it opened lower, because there's this, they're trying to get the shine, like I said, from Get Out, as that other movie which has social commentary, and this is something similar as well. But hey, there's only one Get Out, and Traffik is not there. It opened to about 4 million. It's kind of like at the lower end of my projections, but this movie, I think, is one of these movies that I guess the target audience then go out to support, even though it looks interesting, thrillerish, I guess, but maybe the stars of this movie is just not that appealing at this moment, or maybe there's not, or maybe it's just not a lot of advertisement for for whatever reason. It didn't do as well as I anticipated this movie to do. All right. So that rounds out the top 10. How about we go on to the new releases? We have 3 wide releases, and of course, with Avengers Infinity War, it's still in theaters, right? It's only in its first weekend, and it's moving on to second weekend. That movie's still going to be huge. I mean, the first choice of the people, if the movie going public, they're looking for entertainment, right? And they're mostly young people, and they're still going to choose Infinity War. Right, and so the releases this weekend are pretty much counter programming to target the other demographics, right? Like the woman, the older group. So that's why we have 3 kind of movies that are not in direct competition with Avengers Infinity War. So we have Tully, which is the I think drama directed by Jason Reitman, starring Charlize Theron and Mark Duplass. And then there's the comedy Overboard, starring Eugenio Derbez and Anna Faris. Hey, she's back. And then the thriller Bad Samaritan, directed by Dean Devlin, his second movie as a director. He was a power producer before. Now he's turning to directing. All right, how about we start off with Tully? Like I say, this is a comedy. Billed, in the promos, they say it's from the people who did Juno, which is that award-winning movie. Directed by Jason Reitman. Charlize Theron, Mark Duplass stars as a couple who has kids. There's one on the way. They're stressed out, right? She's a stay-at-home mom. Duplass is he has a job working, and they came home. So this talks about marriage life, balancing home life balance, homework balance, right? With the mother stressing out because she has all these children to take care of, housework, overworked. I mean, if you're a parent, you could relate, or if you're a woman, you could relate. If you're a stay-at-home mom, you could relate, right, to what's going on here. So this is kind of like a little comedy. And then McInnes, is it McInnes? Yeah, McInnes Davis stars as the titular title character, who is kind of like a nanny helper, to wise man or wise woman, to help Darren and Duplass sort their life out. They're saying that you need help, and to help themselves to get back on track, they need to help themselves, and there it goes, right? Review so far is pretty good, at 91% on Rotten Tomatoes with 22 reviews. So it's one of these quiet dramas, I guess, which speaks to the slice of life of this couple, right? I think this movie could probably open, it's well reviewed, open up in the 10 to 15 million range. Like I say, it targets a different crowd than Avengers. Targets the woman audience, target the adult audience, people who might not like their movies loud, like more their movies with more more true to life gravitas, no world destruction, universe destruction. And this, like I say, Charlize Theron, award-winning actress, right? Mark Duplass, and Jason Reitman. 3 very very good people working in a movie. And but again, the crowd, the adult audience might not turn out on the first weekend. But who knows? Like I said, the woman crowd, the female crowd, could go out and support this movie in a huge way. But we don't know. I mean, if it doesn't open huge, like maybe in the 30 million range, I think it could. Like if it opened up in the 10 to 50 million range, I think this movie will linger in theaters, stay and have it's a movie, one of these movies that will have legs. As people will discover this movie and watch it whenever they have time. Because like I said, this movie speaks to that demographic who doesn't can't drop everything and go watch the movies. All right, so 10 to 15 million opening, but if it hits out the ballpark, like I say, if people really want to support this movie, it could open up in the 30 million range. Could, but I doubt it, right? Because all the hype, all the buzz right now is with Avengers, and hey, people might want to avoid the theaters, like the older crowd might want to avoid theaters at this point. Right, but so I think if it could open in the 10 to 15 million range, it's gonna do decent. Like I say, it'll be it'll linger in theaters and continue to make money there. All right, let's move on to the comedy Overboard. Eugenio Derbez and Anna Faris, and even stars Eva Longoria. So it's a comedy. Like we said, when Sim was here, right? Derbez starred in some surprising comedies because it did surprisingly well, like Instructions Not Included, Miracles from Heaven, and Latin Lover, right? You might not like his comedies from the trailers, but his movies did surprisingly well at the box office. And I expect this movie to kind of follow in the same vein, right? Overboard, this one I feel is more mainstream than his previous movies, right? Anna Faris stars as a mom, right? A working mom who works as a cleaner. Derbez as this rich guy who fell overboard on one of his yachts. Amnesia happened. And then Faris and Longoria, they're friends in the movie. And they hatch a plan to get back at this guy. Because Derbez fired Anna Faris. She's kind of an a-hole, right, in the movie. But then, Faris, visit him at the hospital and pretend to be, his wife. And he got him working couple jobs, right, doing menial labor, etc. And I guess they get along at some point, and he have a change of heart. You know how this movie goes, right? It's funny, I guess. But like I said, it will probably perform just as well as his, Derbez's previous movies, previous comedies. So I expect this movie to. Let's get on to some of his movies openings. Like Land Lover opened to 12 million, went on to have a 32 million domestic gross. So I think Overboard is going to be around there, but it's going to be less because, like I said, Avengers is in theater, so it's probably going to be open in the 8 to 10 million range, right? But as these comedies goes, right, his movies will linger in theaters. Will continue to appeal to, I guess, Derbez's fans, which there are a lot, and Anna Faris is an underrated comedian. So 8 to 10 million opening, and it's gonna linger, it's gonna have legs. All right, let's move on to our final wide release. Is a Bad Samaritan. Dean Devlin directed thriller, starring people you might not know or aware of. David Tennant stars as the bad guy. He's this rich dude who has some kinks activities, like chaining people up in his house and torturing them. And there's two friends who works as parking attendants, valets. Their side job is to drive the cars of rich people and drive back to their house and rob them. And during one of these jobs, one of the guys got into the house of David Tennant, who has this woman chained up. Because he wants to rob the thing and discover that there's this woman chained up there, and of course, David Tennant found out, and of course, this chase, cat and mouse game, etc. So this thriller. So we have to talk about Dean Devlin as a director. He was this power producer, right? He did, he produces some, all these big movies like Independence Day from way back when, right? And then he said, I want to direct. Please give me money so I can direct. Yeah. So Dean Devlin as the director, like his previous movie was Geostorm with Gerard Butler back in 2017. That movie didn't do well. It had a it opened to about 13.7 million. It grossed 33 million domestically, 221 million worldwide, but the budget is 120 million, so it kind of bombed theatrically. It might do better on home video and Netflix, etc., right? But it bombed theatrically. Now we're coming up with his other movie, right? Bad Samaritan. The budget is obviously lower than 120 million. But is this a movie that will, raise his stock, raise Dean Devlin's stock, because this is a Dean Devlin movie. He wants to turn into a director. I'm sure he wants to do well. And he started off with a big budget, special effects movie, which didn't do well. Because he's known for, these big budget special effects movies, producing them, of course, but he's directing them. Now he's turning to a smaller movie, Bad Samaritan. And David Tennant is the biggest name actor in the movie, and he might not be enough to draw people out. And of course, Dean Devlin might have a name as a director, but he might not have a producer, but he might not be that well known as a director, as evidenced by Geostorm, right? Normally, unless you are Christopher Nolan, a director don't usually sell a movie, or Steven Spielberg, one of these A-list directors, and Dean Devlin is not at this point. He might be, but he's not. And he, there are competition in theaters as well, to dump a movie, the word dump, in like when Avengers is in theaters, it's gonna still do well, right? It's gonna suck up the oxygen from all the rest of the movie. So that's why studios are reluctant to release a movie so close to these huge movies. So I think probably it's gonna open maybe about 5 million. Have a 5 million opening, because again, I don't see anything that draws people out to this movie. Like if people want to see a thriller, they might go for A Quiet Place. It's that's the horror movie to see right now. Maybe even Truth or Dare, right? Action Avengers, Avengers comedy. There's Tully, and there it's a drama comedy. There's Overboard, and there is the Amy Schumer one, right? There's the Amy Schumer movie, I Feel Pretty, and Super Troopers 2. So I don't think that there's going to be a spot for Bad Samaritan, unless this movie's a surprise, but I doubt it. So I think it's probably going to open to about 5 million. All right, so that's it for this podcast. Tune in next week to see how I did with my projections. Okay, until then, bye-bye.